There we go.
Whoopsie. Let's start again. Hello and welcome to Oz by Drone and particularly Wirecast in the Wild. I'm Greg and Matthew's over there in the background. So today we have 4 topics. Those 4 topics are...
Oh, you want the topics again? Yes, absolutely. Let's get those up.
First-time users and noobs, how not to make mistakes when you're doing broadcast. Screen capturing, doing it a different way, doing it without using the built-in Wirecast screen capture. The third one, My Dream Rendezvous, and the fourth one, USB mixer audio. So talking about audio, it's rather ironic that we had a brief hiccup with our audio today, but it happens to the best of us. So Matthew, first-time users.
Yes, unfortunately, I may have been the first-time user on that one. Ironically enough, it has nothing to do with Wirecast. My hardware encoder was not getting the audio set through the SDI, and I'm hoping it's working now. I haven't seen Grumpy Vlogger or Peter, who thank you for mentioning it to me here. Hopefully it's up and running now. I apologize for that. That's on me. Needed to change the settings back to doing SDI audio, not analog. So...
Yep. So I've just asked in the chat, is it there now? So we'll find out very, very soon from the guys.
Yep.
Anyway, first-time users. So this is specifically directed at Grumpy. This is all about you. So you're a new person playing around with some of this funky software, and we thought we'd talk to you. So you mentioned that you've already got, and I think I've let the cat out of the bag, because I know that Grumpy was previously using something else, and he's playing around with Wirecast, and I wasn't meant to let people know that it was him. Oops. Anyway, sorry, Lloyd. So he's playing around with Wirecast, and at the moment he's got to the point where compositing shots and all of that kind of stuff is done. Happy days. But beyond there, actually getting it out to air and broadcasting and tips and tricks, we were going to have an informal discussion about some of that stuff. So let's start with your outputs within Wirecast. So if I go over to my screen right now, output settings, and Matthew, if you could do me the favor of bringing my screen up.
You are already good to go.
Okay. So number one, I'm using a Mac, you're using a PC. You'll have some different alternatives instead of Apple H.264. But generally speaking, you've got either X.264 or you will have NVIDIA or some other similar hardware that's relevant to your particular computer. General rule of thumb, if you are using a lower spec computer, don't use X.264 unless you've got a really, really simple set of workload on your computer. So if you're doing just a straight camera and no overlays, no virtual studios, no green screen, and lots of higher workload stuff, then perhaps, you can use X.264 for a really simple setup. But if you're getting more complex, definitely use the hardware encoder. That's my first tip. We'll do one for one. Your first tip, Matthew?
First time people doing this is you really want to simplify your life. Pick a topic that's going to be good for you. Plan it all out. Plan what you want to have. And honestly, practice. I cannot stress that enough. Practice, 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 practice.
Practice turning on the audio at the beginning of the stream.
Yes,
Sorry,
indeed.
I couldn't resist.
I get it. Yep, that's on me. But no, honestly, it comes down to practice and over practice. Plan your shots out, record, watch yourself over again before you go live. Now, even though I have practiced today constantly, it was a setting that I did not do. I didn't record myself via the same way I did, and that's why I missed the audio. But yes.
Okay, next tip and trick. Inside Wirecast, video display rate. You should match that to whatever your inputs are. So normally I have it 30 frames per second. I was doing a bit of an experiment with something else. So 30 frames per second, and that would be your encoder output frame rate. You don't want those two numbers to be different. Really simple tip. One other one while I'm on that screen, live icons. again, if you're on a high CPU system, you want to avoid having live icons turned on. Start that again. If you're on a CPU constrained system, might be a better way of saying it, don't use live icons, because what live icons does, let's turn it on now and actually show you.
So it is, while you're turning that on, I can see the computer's not really caught up. What I mean by plan it out, Grumpy Vlogger, is understand what topics you're going to cover, how you want to cover them, like what type of shots do you want to have and put in place? Do you want to have picture-in-picture? Do you want to do full screen? And then how are you going to look when you're talking to it? Do you want to always be turning to the person that you're having a conversation with if you're talking to somebody else? Do you want to be looking in certain directions by pointing at different graphics? But essentially, if you're going to use any software to do live streaming, you should always plan out what you want to do ahead of time. You can run ad hoc if you want.
Before you do your show.
Yeah.
Do your show before you do it, many times over.
Yeah.
I mean, people may not know this. When I'm doing my regular drone-related show, the show normally starts at 11 o'clock. I start the setup and a practice run with my wife at 8 o'clock in the morning. So if we find problems, we fix it wherever we can. Let's go back to the screen that I've got at the moment. So just talking about the live icons. Put that behind me. So my head's a little bit almost in the way.
Well, let's just take you out of the shot then.
Okay, that's awesome. So over there, you can see this FaceTime camera. Now, it's updating in real time in response to the changes that I'm doing there in the screen.
Once per second.
Once per second, but it's more CPU now. If there's only one icon there, that's fine. If you've only got one camera, you can use live icons. Not that you'd really need it if you've only got one shot. But if you've got a large number of shots, try to avoid that unless you've got a really super-powered system. And by the way, here's a really simple tip and trick for people. I just added my FaceTime camera to the screen. Over here, scale to fit is the first thing. Second thing that you would need to look at when you're adding video sources is the resolution. For whatever reason, it was detected incorrectly. So let's go and change that. And now it's a full screen in there. So those are the two settings, scale to fit and also the resolution of your camera. Over to you. Next tip, Matthew.
Next tip, make sure that if you're using hotkeys, be sure that Wirecast is the frontmost application. On all serious, check your audio. And I know I say that based upon what we just happened, but in actual fact, it is one of my original tips that I have for this. You want to make sure your audio levels are good. If I'm really closely talking to a microphone up here, it's going to be super loud. If I'm sitting back here, it's going to be super quiet. You're not going to be able to hear me. What you want to do is situate yourself like you would normally, and you want to be sure that that audio level is exactly where it needs to be ahead of time, so you don't have to hear it. You can use the visual or the VU meters that are in Wirecast to tell whether or not you're being heard by your audience.
And that is a really, really big tip about the VU meters. So if we can get my computer up again, and I'm going to add an audio source.
And I'm going to leave you on so that you can clap to have people see with a clap comparatively.
I wasn't going to do the clap thing. That's not what I was going to do, but let me do this first. So the audio levels on the right-hand side, couple of things. People sometimes make a mistake and audio is not going to air because they don't have that icon ticked. This one. This is your live to air. If you don't have that icon illuminated and yellow, no sound goes to YouTube. The other one, this one is for your local monitoring. If you want to monitor local versus preview, there's some other kind of interplay between that and rendezvous that make it very confusing. If you've got a rendezvous guest, you want to hear them before they go on air, or do you want to hear what's going to air? You need to make a decision about that. Let me explain that and unpack that a little bit more. So over here, I'll open my rendezvous dashboard. I'll stick it there so we can have less of me. By default, over here at the moment on this particular computer, I've only got two outputs, MacBook Pro speakers and MacBook Pro speakers. But on my real workstation that I use normally when I'm broadcasting, I also have a HDMI output with that going to a monitor, and I've got the volume turned all the way down on that. Why is that important and why is that relevant? When I go live, I don't want to hear the Rendezvous preview stuff anymore, but I still need the dashboard up for managing that. So I send the audio from those people to a HDMI monitor that's got the volume turned all the way down. And then I can listen only to the live audio based on whatever is going to air. So you can choose between the two that way. I hope that made sense.
It does. And on that note, I'm going to basically pull up my screen here, and I'm going to show you what my audio and video kind of looks like in that same Rendezvous. Now, for me, I have several different types of inputs available to me, including other computers on the network for NDI inputs. And then for speakers, I have a multitude of outputs that I can do as well that I can redirect. The speakers that I have currently set, it's actually going to a multi-output device that I have individual control over. So if I wanted to send to my headphones or to studio speakers or to another mixing console, the ability to output all of the stuff into a single thing and get it out of Wirecast, I think right now, for me, is the more powerful of the things to do.
Pardon me, sorry.
Good there? On that note, however, I think that is basically my tips for a beginner, is to understand the audio and to practice. Being sure that you don't have to hear your video going out, because you'll go crazy if you do. In fact, it's actually a very interesting torture method of having it, so that when you speak and there's a delay of like half a second, it tricks the human brain to react and respond and to slow down. Awful. And if you don't need to do that, that means you can concentrate on your show. So clearly, make sure that you can understand how the audio and video work prior to starting.
Yeah, I've got two more that I do want to share. Your videos that you may or may not want to play out through Wirecast, if you've got them in a shot as opposed to capturing, make sure that, if possible, that video is recorded at the same frame rate that you're using and the same resolution that you're going to play it out at. If you've got a 720p show and you've got this video at a different resolution and Wirecast has to dynamically scale it, that's more work that it's got to do. It's not to say that it's not capable of doing these things, but everything you do to remove that workload and give it more CPU headroom, that's good for you to be more flexible about what you want to do in the future.
Yep. As a case example of that, if you see this little bar right here, this little bar that shows the current topic, although it is originally rendered out in 1080p, because this is scaled down exactly the same as something like our lower thirds is. In fact, if I can pull this up, the lower third here, right? It's the same video content. It's just playing a different method. What I'm doing to the bar up ahead, this guy here, is I'm re-rendering that out into a 720p just to save CPU and processing to go with that. So it's prepping your content for what your show is. Understand, though, when we're saying the same frame rate, Wirecast only has the ability to do, at least internally, 30 and 60 frames a second under the preferences and what you're using. Your content that you're bringing in, like for instance this camera, is currently doing at 5994. So when it comes down to 50 for our EU and our Australian friends, they'll have to consider that when they do things. So just keep that in mind.
You just shared something to me that I wasn't aware of. You said it can only do 30 and 60. Wirecast can't do 50?
It can output in those, but when you go into your performance...
No, it's got 50 there. They've added that.
You're right. They have added it. Sorry, 50, 60, 30, 25, and 24. Now, that 60 is not 5994. It's 60.
True 60. Yeah.
Correct. It is true 60. And same with the 30. 30 is not the 2997. So keep that in mind. You will be dropping a frame if you're playing back content, but for the most part, people aren't going to notice that one frame in X. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. I've got one last one, which is ProRes. Matthew,
Yep.
tell me.
I'm using ProRes. The video right here is ProRes at 720p. However, keep in mind, playing back ProRes in certain applications can cause high CPU.
So let me just
But
qualify that. I'm talking about ProRes video that you might be, for example, looping or
yep,
whatever. So if you've got a logo that is ProRes and got transparency in it, let's say you've got a little YouTube spinny
stinger
thing or
or
whatever.
bug. Yep, video
Yep.
bug.
Yep. The challenge is that seems to consume high CPU on the computer that you're running Wirecast on. It's currently under investigation, but that is something to try and avoid if you can. What
Yep.
did I just? Oh, that's why I'm going crazy. I always listen to myself.
It's a good comment. Very good
Grumpy,
comment, Grumpy.
Grumpy, what do you mean going crazy? You've been crazy for a long time. And
It was a very short trip from what I've
yeah.
understood from what Greg's told me.
And there was one more tip that you were kind of hinting at before. Greg has the clap.
Yes, definitely
So,
saw that one too.
yeah. So there's a whole thing about how to calculate your delay between your video and your audio.
You were saying
Now,
this prior to our stream, yes.
yeah, I am unable to compensate for that today because I'm going not through Wirecast, I'm going direct into Rendezvous. Now, I'm curious, can you do video delay on Rendezvous inputs?
No.
You can't.
Nope. There is no speed control on Rendezvous inputs.
So on the audio dashboard,
On the audio dashboard, audio mixer,
yeah. Under every input, there's a thing where you can.
there's a filter, an FX, yeah. And yes, I can add a delay here.
Okay, so our apologies. If you did want to add a delay to me today to try and synchronize my talking mouth and my wonderful voice, it's 0.180 milliseconds. So if you want to put that number in, how did I calculate that?
0.18?
Yes.
Well, considering it's already set to 185 milliseconds.
I don't know how it got to 185.
And I can tell you that it was not me that set that.
Okay. We've got a ghost. We've got a gremlin.
So that's interesting. Also, it's interesting that there is no the L delay and the R delay are in different timings.
Huh?
So this is an ad hoc thing. We weren't planning on this. However, let me just do a quick switch over. Interesting. That's bizarre. So yeah, if I have your display up here, left and right delays have different values and are using different types of measurement. There's an echo apparently.
Okay.
Oh, probably.
I can't see that too clearly, unfortunately.
Is the echo gone? Oh, the echo is apparently on you.
Have you got me appearing twice?
No, and I bet it's because I added a filter and effect to it.
Okay. Someone said
Remove that.
Okay.
Nope. Interesting. Apparently there's an echo on you, and I don't know why. Because I can't remove it.
Do me a favor and put my screen up, and I'll go over to my USB mixer.
Sure. I'm going to see about removing your filter.
That's what I'm going to go and quickly demonstrate.
Yep, got it.
You found it?
I did.
Okay.
So above and beyond drones and Grumpy Vlogger, is it still echoing on him? I think that delay caused an echo. That wasn't a delay as in a delay the audio. I think that delay was a echo filter.
Okay. So let's get back to what I was saying though. So up here at the very top, if you have a look at my screen, and I'll move it over there a little bit. There we go.
Yep.
So do you have a delay number there for a rendezvous input?
On the delay output, let me check. Closed it because the computer was, yep. I do have one there, yes.
Okay, so 0.180 is the correct number for me if you put it there.
0.180.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that will theoretically align my voice correctly. So at least I don't look like a bad puppet show.
Comparatively?
Anyway, let me go back to where we were. ProRes.
Sure.
We didn't kind of finish that. So, excuse me, can you mute me so I can cough?
I absolutely can.
1, 2, 3.
Shh, don't tell him I missed it.
Where was I? ProRes. If you are using those kind of video bugs and those things, I know, Grumpy, you have your famous flag eagle-y thing that you have running all the time at the bottom of your desk. If that's the only one that you've got running, that will probably work well. But if you add too many of those transparencies layered into your shot, eventually you'll hit a CPU limit. So try and limit the number of those things you do. If it's other live video content from a camera or something like that, no problem whatsoever. But it's just the motion video with alpha channels that seems to have a problem. So that's the end of our first topic. I think we've reached the end. Let's go to Grumpy. Has he got anything else that he wants to add?
Grumpy is basically saying, can you just mute your own?
I can, but I'm not using Wirecast. I'm using the Rendezvous dashboard, and way over there, about 3 meters away from me, is where the computer is. So yeah, I could just get up from my chair, walk over there, cross the camera, and no, I'll try and avoid that.
Or I should just be able to do this, right? The power that I have.
Okay, our second topic, and this one's a cool one. It's something that came to me, and I'm sure, Matthew, you've been doing this for a long time, and in fact, you're actually doing it today.
Yep.
Let me go and get a prop. If I can find it. There we go. We have here a device, a USB cam link from Elgato. This is something that I think is an absolute must-have in your kit bag. Other people may use other brands. The reason I like this one is, and no, it's not sponsored. The reason I like this one is it works on a Mac without any drivers. So that's a real big thing for me. So connect it in via USB, connect HDMI on the other end. But here's the trick. To do your video, if you've got a HDMI out from your computer, and let's say you're playing VLC or some other video player out of your computer, Matthew's going to set this up live.
No, I just had another inspiration for a tip, and I think I might hold off for another day. I found a really good potential solution for that multiple video playback.
Okay, we'll come back to you. But if you're playing VLC video out, send it to HDMI out. If you've got a video splitter, you can use that, so a HDMI splitter, so you can still have it come up on a monitor if you need it to come up on a monitor. Or if you don't need that and you're happy to just have it in your preview window, just connect this back into the same computer as a loop. Computer out, HDMI, back into the computer via USB. Really, really simple way of doing it. Now, the reason why this is relevant, another YouTuber that uses Wirecast, Ken Heron, he recently had a challenge where he was playing a video on another monitor and it was looking perfect on the screen, but all of a sudden it was pausing every 5 seconds. And we still haven't 100% isolated the root cause of that, but we rebuilt the shot and the problem went away. But by using something like this, you take away the problem. It's in hardware. It can't go wrong. It's just really dead simple. So, Matthew, tell us about what you're doing in terms of HDMI inputs. Are you doing some of this stuff yourself?
Actually, I am. So I have a bit of a hoarding thing with tech. So to get my computers in, what I'm doing is I'm running splitters. So this is DAC 70, and I've got another one connected to my computer as one of the primary outputs here. That output is then getting split into several different outputs. Because this has multiple different things for HDMI and 2 SDI, I'm able to pass one of them into my AV rig, and I'm able to pass another one into a PCIe card that's in the physical device that the HDMI is coming from, and then the HDMI that's coming out of it is going into the monitor itself. Meaning, if I wanted to, I can then pull something like this screen completely, and this is coming in as a device that, let me see if I can pull up a window so you can see, you can have full frame video coming in. Now this is a 60p video coming in, or 5994 coming in, without doing any type of screen capture. So the intent here is that I'm not putting more processing power in just taking whatever's on the output and recapturing that to bring into Wirecast. This is just acting like another video capture device. Much, much more efficient.
Yeah, I don't know why this is like it, for people who are doing it every day like yourself. That is something that you've got in your trick bag, but it's something that I think needs to be shared
These are
more
expensive,
widely.
but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you're in video, it's a $600 to $700 Canadian device, but it's an up-down cross converter. Get one of these. I have two of them. I do not regret this purchase. Not sponsored by Data Video.
And not sponsored by Elgato, but
I too have an Elgato device as well, and I'm using video to pass into that. And again, it has pass through as well.
yeah,
But I want to make sure I'm mentioning here, I also have an AverMedia device that I originally purchased for the same purpose. It too has pass through, and it's intended for gamers. Note and do your research on this. The reason why I don't use these as a general purpose thing is because in order for the pass-through to work on many of these devices, you need to be actually using the device, as in capturing it. So that means you need to have Wirecast or other piece of software that's trying to get the feed. That needs to happen before the pass-through action functions. So keep that in mind when you're buying. That might, if you plug it in and you turn your computer on, the display might not work unless you're actively trying to get the signal.
Speaking of pass-through devices and splitting and whatnot, I've got another little prop, and if you could go and put your camera up while I go for a walk,
Sure.
I'll be back. But essentially, I got a splitter device recently, and let me just go and get it. And
Sure.
Can you tap dance or tell a joke?
A couple little things about splitters. Depending on your audio and video setup, you can take a look at doing some simple stuff from something like Monoprice, where there's an HDMI in, and then it does SDI out. Interestingly, I don't have them in front of me; they're behind my green screen here. Blackmagic has SDI to HDMI, HDMI to SDI converters, and what you can do there is you can run HDMI into SDI, and then that gives you two SDI outs, and then you can either run SDI back into an HDMI converter to get it back into a monitor, or an SDI monitor you have. The key is basically making sure that you have two signals when you're doing this. So there's also HDMI splitters you can get from Monoprice and stuff as well. They're pretty cheap.
Yeah. The one that I did get, a simple little HDMI splitter box, and I got confused by something. They said, it comes with an Australian power pack and nice and easy to use in Australia. And I thought, great, no problem. I'll give that a go. Plugged it in, and it actually powers off the HDMI line without needing an external power supply. How and why would that be, Matthew?
You mean why would it be powered off the HDMI?
Well, what would be the reason for creating a product that's got a separate power supply and input for it, if it's able to function directly off the HDMI line? What would be the reasoning for that?
It depends what the resolution is of the device that comes out. As well, it depends on the device that you're using. If you plug that HDMI into something like a camera, right? So a lot of modern cameras have HDMI signals coming out of them. If that's running on battery and you're running this, that
Good
device
answer.
is likely not going to work, right? So you're
Good
going to
answer.
need an external one.
Okay, it was just something that came to me, but a nice little device as well. And
Yeah.
my use case for it was I'm changing cable boxes in the near future, and I had a couple of movies that were in there that I just absolutely wanted to keep, and it wouldn't capture it natively, and this helped fix that problem.
Removing the copyright stuff?
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry, what? But you
no
know
idea
what
what
was
you're talking about.
interesting? You know what was interesting is the fact that what I understood of HDCP is you needed input coming from your device, and you needed a monitor which was doing the HDCP back to the other end, and then the other one going to your recording device. This one worked without needing a monitor.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that functions, and I am not a professional at this. However, it is my understanding that the thing that is playing the video just needs to, hey, does this device that you're sending to support it? Yes? Great. I'm going to send this stuff. You need to get back to me. Oh, it doesn't support it? Okay, well, you're clearly playing something that isn't there. If it does support it, that's where you have the issue. And that's what these splitters do. They don't support it. So I could be completely wrong. I'm not a professional, should anybody take legal advice from me.
Anyway, let's move on to our next topic, My Dream Rendezvous. And no, we're not getting into the dating market. Rendezvous is the software that we use within Wirecast. And we wanted to have a chat about what would we do differently? What would we change? What would we add to make it into the perfect remote guest tool for us?
Now, do you have that page loaded?
I absolutely don't, but I can.
Okay. I have it loaded on my screen here, but I figured it'd be easier to read for you if it was on your computer as well.
Okay.
So this springs from a conversation that I've been going back and forth with Rendezvous on Telestream's forum. We had a conversation, and in fact, you and I were both part of the. I think you were part of the beta team as well prior to this running out and being released. We at the time were very vocal about it and its functions. A lot of these came from that conversation, and they still haven't been implemented. But what I'm about to show and what Greg has basically read is our dream rendezvous and how we see it functioning.
Our manifesto, if you like.
Correct.
So starting at the very beginning, number one on the list, 1080p video. I think 1080p, we live in a world where people are starting to do 4K video, let alone 1080. We can't do that at the moment. It's still limited to 720. So that's something we would absolutely love to have.
And I've noticed that in the code, it's actually in the code, hard-coded, a camera feed is currently limited and maxed out at 720p, but resolution coming from a screen capture is 1080.
It needs, let's add one other point there. It needs to be configurable. So rather than just saying we're going to give you 1080p video, it needs to be configurable so that an end user who runs Wirecast, third world country like Australia, where our internet is so great, they could still actually use it. So that's number one there. The second one that we've got, higher quality video to guests where bandwidth is available. So right now I'm looking at a screen, and I wonder if I can, let me see.
Try selecting my video, or no, I don't think that's going to work for you.
Yeah. Look, Matthew, if you're watching my screen, it'll only be there for a second, but it was only there for a second. But let's just look at this. My Dream Rendezvous. Put it back. My Dream Rendezvous.
I'm going to switch it back so it'll be there.
Yeah. just the heading alone, which is not changing, is unreadable. I can barely make it out. So that's one of the frustrations. Remote guests with Wirecast, they don't have a clear picture. But that is by design. So they actually said, we want to make sure that the video and the data coming into Wirecast is crispy, clear, and pristine and looking absolutely perfect. So they made a decision to sacrifice the bandwidth back to the guest. It needs to be configurable or automatically adjust so that you can actually use a higher quality video back to your guest where possible. Do you want to go with the next one or two, Matthew, and we'll switch it up a bit?
Yeah. So next on my list here is built-in chat for participants. Being able to send communication back and forth between guests. Send a link back and forth. Hey, check this link out. Like when I had said, do you have that up? Like I should have been able to say, great, let me grab that link, paste it over in the Rendezvous chat. Communication platform is still technically there. I don't know why it's just not being available. So that is super interesting to see that. The next thing I have on there is ability to add control and help for participants and guests. Right now, there's a couple of pieces of software out there that are, I'm going to say, not competing, but definitely work with Wirecast for the like how it worked, like Rendezvous, that give the person in a control room the ability to say, hey, I see you're using this camera, but can you send us this camera instead? Or your audio feed isn't right. It should be this one. It's JavaScript. All of that stuff is absolutely available. I should be able to help support and say, I'm going to pull this audio feed instead. Yeah.
Okay. Next one on the list, less CPU by simply having the window open. So I'm going to actually ask you to do a little experiment for us live today, Matt. We're going to get the Rendezvous window open and maybe a task manager, if you wouldn't mind. Here's what I'm thinking. I'll explain the challenge. Just opening Rendezvous dashboard gives more CPU to the computer, but something that just came to me, is it the live out feed in the Rendezvous dashboard that's causing that? So if Matthew changes that back to just a raw camera going to me, will that reduce the CPU load? I was just curious. It just came to me. Is that something we can test while we're here?
I don't know if it's possible to test while we're doing this because I believe I'm going to lose audio for that.
No. You shouldn't. So let me bring up mine. Window, open Rendezvous dashboard. And let me see. Look, I haven't got you as a remote guest, so I wonder if it'll give the same results or not. Activity monitor. And we've got Wirecast and the Google Chrome helper. So Wirecast is currently using 128% of one CPU core, and the Google Chrome helper, which is doing the other stuff, is using another 106%. Now, if I close the Rendezvous dashboard, that Wirecast will drop down to, let's have a look. Not really a big drop there today. But if I reopen that window, and let's try live output from, and I'll send that camera actually live. Where I was going with that, there we go. So we've got another 15, 20% on top. Pardon me, itchy nose today. But it's gone back down again. It's probably hard for me to do this right now because I'm not using a realistic rig, but something for us to test another day.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to do. And like you and I have had a conversation about testing out a bunch of these little gotchas and recording them rather than having it on a live stream. Because obviously being on a live stream, it's a bit more difficult to do. And okay, great. Let's ad hocly do this with like a ton of different stuff open. I've got hardware encoders, which means we can test all of these things without impacting the CPU, and we'll report back when we do. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, let's get back to our list.
Sure.
Window open. The
Ability to
ability
mute,
to
mix, minus
mute or
live.
mix minus anybody if they're live. So I mentioned a few moments ago, and I'll put my screen back up again. Window open, rendezvous dashboard. I turn off all audio by sending the rendezvous output to something that's not going to have audio out. So that's what I do. And then later on, over here within Wirecast itself, I monitor the live to air audio. That's my solution for that. Simple thing, there needs to be another option over here within, oops, where did I get that from? Window, rendezvous dashboard. Needs to be another option. So instead of sending it to an audio device, there needs to be none of the above. Don't send the audio from the rendezvous dashboard anywhere. That would be really helpful. And I've just thought of one more. I want to have a quick look at the screen over here, see if it's in there. It's not. We need to add one to the wish list. When I'm getting ready for my show, and it's an audio related one, when I'm getting ready for my show and rendezvous is open half an hour before, do I need to sit staring at the screen waiting for that rendezvous pop-up to come in? Or can we have something that will go bing, bing, and make a noise?
That does exist. That absolutely does exist.
Nope, not on a Mac.
Okay, are you sure? On a PC, that absolutely does exist. In fact, every time somebody joins me on Wirecast, directly beside the Go button below the live and preview windows, directly beside there's a little red button, and I get a system-wide notification. It gives me
I get a system-wide notification, but there's no audio with it on a Mac.
Okay, so I get that, and that is more than likely a limitation of the OS. If they're saying send a system-wide notification on a Mac, the system-wides don't have a notification sound.
Which can be overcome. I mean, they definitely could do an internal audio bing.
But that's going to impact somebody that is streaming out their system audio.
Yeah, so you make a decision. Do you want to do it, and which device do you want to send it to?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think
just
that's definitely something that's there. But that Bing, I think, is more of a limitation. They're basically using what they should, a system-wide notification.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it's really frustrating. I've had people joining my show and sitting there waiting, and I'm going and getting a drink or whatever I might be doing,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know they're there. Next, you want to do one?
Sure. The next one I have up here, is resolution changing. You joined this conversation about 4:55 p.m. my time, and we were streaming in about half an hour. So for me, it took 10 to 15 minutes to go through all the different shots that you and I have together and generate and rescale everything that we had. And I mean, I had to go and change it from 38,000 in one shot to 240% in another shot to all these various things. In fact, I noticed as we were just having this conversation about this, that your shot of the single with the screen behind you was not the right resolution. It had brought you in at 100% instead of the 58.1% that it should be. So I missed doing the scaling on that one, and sorry, you were a bit blown out. But if I need to go and modify this, all I did was take your rendezvous, open up that thing, shot list, right-click, replace it with your current rendezvous. It's the same scale. It's the same resolution from last time, but it's not maintaining the scaling and cropping. So I want anything to do, I want that to happen. And I think it really plays into number 13, which I think for me is the big one. If they did 13, it would solve half the stuff anyway. So 11, guests should have the ability to mute incoming camera, and that plays back to the bandwidth thing. Hey, look, if I have X amount of bandwidth that I'm using, do you mind muting your video for right now? Just send me audio and just send me your audio and video. Don't send me your video or whatnot. Just give them
Yeah,
that ability. They might not have a high
absolutely.
upload.
Absolutely. And if a guest is sitting on a mobile device in the middle of nowhere, which, I live in Australia, we've got people who join my show from all sorts of places.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. If like you had said, you should also have the ability to just mute your video. Now, I believe Wirecast doesn't have the ability to just not send video. It says choose a camera or send the live view. It cannot send nothing
Nothing.
through. It cannot
Please,
send
put
just
that in,
audio.
please. That would be so helpful because there have been times when I'm battling with Telstra and my upload bandwidth to stream. By the way, Telstra in Australia, for those who didn't hear about it, like blowing your nose, Greg. Oh, okay. Thank you. Telstra yesterday, I complain about them all the time, but they did a good one yesterday. Every Woolworths supermarket in the country and many of the ATMs nationwide, every one of them, and every Caltex service station, no payments. You could not use a card. Thank you, Telstra. Anyway.
So this last one, I think, is all for you. I'm going to leave this one for you because I know I put this in here knowing that you would love it. So go nuts.
Placeholders. At the moment, I use virtual sets. It's something that I choose to do, but the virtual set that I use is not the one that I want to use. I want to use a different virtual set, but I cannot. The virtual set that I have requires more than 3 placeholders. Right now, if you go into Wirecast, and I'll go and create a shot, new shot, and we'll change the template. I've got, let's say, 3 panes. That is the total number of placeholders. I'm limited to that. I can't do more, A, B, and C. Even if you hack the XML and make your own placeholders, it doesn't support more than 3. So that's one of my big challenges. Let me go back to the notes so I can continue. So yeah, more placeholders. Matt is saying placeholders to assign people to from Rendezvous. Why is that important? In my document that I use for my show, for those who watch it regularly, you'll know that I've got the TV screen view of a remote guest where there's someone there, and then there's a full screen view, and I might even choose to have 2 guests side by side. I want, when the guest joins Rendezvous, to be able to say, that guest is placeholder B, and replace it everywhere that I've got a placeholder B in my templates. And the next guest that joins is placeholder C. I don't want to have to edit each individual shot. That's why setting up my show every week, I've got to spend so much time doing that. Now, Matthew, you might do it a little bit differently. You don't use templates, and you've got the existing one from last week, and you try and replace it. That's another method as well. Whatever it is, it needs to be simpler. And I'm about to cough again, so press that magic button for me.
You got it. Yep, you're done. But I left your video up just for the people.
The other thing that's really frustrating is placeholders can be used to position, scale, crop, and add adjustments to audio control, whatever. That needs to be there. So at the moment, if I bring that screen up again, and if I was to add myself into placeholder C, let's do that now, change source, source C, FaceTime, and all of a sudden my face is squashed. For women that want to be on air and look really thin, it's good for them. But
let's not go there.
It's politically correct. I'm having fun. Anyway, you see the point that I don't want to look like that. I want to look like I look like. And it's frustrating that using placeholders that are designed to make it simple, I can't use them. Even the placeholders that come out of the box with the software. So scaling, positioning, cropping, adding adjustments into all of the above. And here's a big one, audio control. There's a tip that I forgot right at the top of the show. I use all of my audio normally on the bottom layer inside Wirecast in layer 5.
Yep, so do I. I do have something very similar to that.
And on every other shot, I mute my audio. I would love it if I had a control on this placeholder. If I could double click on that and go to the audio tab and just say mute, but it's all grayed out so that when I do actually put something in, oh, here's one. Oh,
Yeah,
it would be good if that would work. When I put my source in there, I don't want audio from that. I want to add it down here on layer 5. Can't do that. So those are kind of my wishes. Any other last minute thoughts on that?
no, not really for me. It was me that made this list. Having conversations between you and other people, it makes far more sense to do it in this manner. So that's why I put it in there.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes up. That was 2 weeks ago. Nothing's been updated yet, so I'm not going to hold them to that and say why wasn't it done. But I think with those, it shouldn't take me 15 minutes to set up a two-person shot when the document is a pre-existing document that we've used for previous shows. If we added
Yeah.
another person in here, it shouldn't take me 15 minutes to get all those same shots up and running for that other person. And right now,
Yeah.
it would.
The other thing that I'd add as a point 14 is adding a virtual receptionist or a waiting room or something like that. That would be cool as well.
So on this note, I want to be clear. Wirecast's Rendezvous is intended to solve a problem, intended to compete with some of the competitors out there. Those competitor software they don't have those features as well.
So
However, but
I know where you're going, but here's the question. Should you compete or should you try and be better? Should
you
you?
should be better. However, when they had to do a product release, they have to do a product release.
Yeah.
There are other systems and tools out there. There is Zoom. There is Skype. There's Skype boxes. There is Neural Net. All of these different things have different solutions to do this. Neural Net is a piece of software to do radio call-in style, like the old pick up your phone, call in somewhere, have a control room, be the person who says, "Oh yeah, we're talking about this, we're talking about that. Great, well, I'm going to push you through. Here's the person. I'm going to record the person's there's a control room." Neural Net is that for video, where it is still browser based. It does give you a lot of controls. It's a higher quality video coming out. There's no branding like Skype has for its NDI. It can be run off an independent box, and it's intended to be somebody sitting in a back room and managing the control board and doing the switching and monitoring and saying, "Yeah, I have that video source. Great, I'm going to put this in here." And it does have 4 sources that you can output an NDI or SDI or whatever you want, that you can then assign in something like Wirecast. You can bring in that single source into Wirecast, and then in their software, you assign that individual to that source, right? It's a professional software. It's a subscription.
I get it. I get it that there's another product that does it, but I would
It's
just
the
say
pro
to that,
software. It's not the I need this working now, right? Google
yeah.
Hangouts is a great piece of software for doing video conferencing. Is it the best? No. Is it a solution that works?
But you know
Yes.
what? That's an interesting point. I would actually think it'd be a good feature with Google Hangouts being discontinued in the near future for Wirecast to go and add a non-pro feature in the Wirecast One, the very cheapest one, to compete with this space. Why
It's not
not
their
have
business.
some?
Their business is not video conferencing. Their business is
It's
to
not.
do streaming software. And
It's not. But there is a market space there for that at the moment, right? If you ask half a dozen different live shows of people that I watch, would you use this feature if it existed in Wirecast? Would you pay for the product if you're not currently a Wirecast user? And I think a lot of them would say absolutely.
even with other software tools out there like Zoom and Skype,
Zoom, I don't.
well, with their recent kerfuffle with Apple, is an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't like Zoom. That's just me. Skype. I've never had the auto switching thing working with Skype. Maybe it would
Oh yeah,
work.
it's terrible.
Yeah. So there is a market space here. This works really, really well with Google Hangouts. They've decided to cancel it. That's their choice. Can this market void be filled by someone else? Hopefully. Can Wirecast be the one to do it? Time will tell.
So we have only 4 minutes left. Did you want to touch on USB audio, or did you want to jump ahead into? I guess we're not doing that one. USB audio mixer, just to jump into that.
Yeah, look, I think we might do it another time because it does warrant a bit more of a deeper look. So having a look at some of the configuration settings, and I'm playing with my computer in the background, trying to subtle hint, send that shot live.
I will definitely do that.
So these are definitely the pro features in the USB mixer, delay dynamics and all of this kind of stuff. Having a chat about that, having a chat about the delay. And we did touch on it briefly. How do you calculate the delay? You record a video with your video and your microphone. You clap to your microphone. You play it back in an editor, find out how many frames it is between the clap audio and the clap video, and then you know what your delay is. And you can set that to make yourself look a lot better, or at least synchronize a lot better. But yeah, looking at these other settings, something I think we should leave as a topic for next week.
Yeah, that makes sense. Something I wanted to note as well, kind of a bug that we kind of did find today. I know it's not really what this show is about, finding bugs in Wirecast. However, wanted to take note of this. Brand new software that you had to download to get your screen into Wirecast for the screen sharing on that second person you're coming into Rendezvous. Because you're running a Mac, the primary display on a Mac is not 1920 by 1080. Therefore, it's taking a 1920 by 1080 cropped view of your display and sending me that. It's not sending me. I think it should be technically sending me pillar boxes on the left and right if it was sending me your full screen. But I wanted to take note of that. The video that you see here is actually what I'm getting. That is absolutely a 16 by 9 resolution. That the dock and the menu bar are cut off.
Yeah.
So that was just brand new software that you installed today from them. So
yeah, and it, as far as I could remember, used to work.
Yeah, it did. It was great. I liked it because it just brought in the video nice and clean. Although last time you didn't use it, you used Wirecast to capture the screen.
I did.
That's what it was. So we actually haven't tested this yet.
But I think it was better that I didn't use Wirecast to capture the screen, because that way I can play around with Wirecast without, even if I close it or whatever, it still works. So.
Yeah. And I think if I do that in the future, I'm going to run my second laptop that's running the content, the NDI content for the YouTube messages. I'll probably run that as an input as well, so I can pop up Wirecast there too.
Yeah. Before we disappear, let me just go back to the chat room over here, if I can find the right window. Is there anything interesting that anyone is saying?
No. Grumpy Vlogger had to go BRB a little while ago, but nobody else is on there right now.
Okay. Then we'll leave it there for today. It's been fun chatting, and as always, see you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.